Ivan Shishman ruled as Emperor of Bulgaria in Tarnovo from 1371 to 3 June 1395. The authority of Ivan Shishman was limited to the central parts of the Bulgarian Empire. His indecisive and inconsistent policy did little to prevent the fall of his country under Ottoman rule. In 1393 the Ottoman Turks seized the capital Tarnovo. 2 years later, they captured Ivan Shishman's last strongholds and executed him. Despite the military and political weakness, during his rule Bulgaria remained a major cultural center and the ideas of hesychasm dominated the Bulgarian Orthodox Church. Patriarch Evtimi of Tarnovo became the most prominent cultural figure of the country. A number of texts were written or translated and an orthographic reform of the Bulgarian language was issued with synchronized rules. After the fall of Bulgaria, a number of scholars found refuge in the other Orthodox countries and brought the achievements of the Bulgarian culture to them. His reign was inextricably connected to the fall of Bulgaria under Ottoman domination, although there exist no historical sources which prove that he took active role in the defense of the country. In Bulgarian folklore, Ivan Shishman is portrayed as a legendary and heroic ruler who desperately fought against the overwhelming Ottoman forces. There are numerous sites, geographical features and fortresses named after him throughout Bulgaria. Biography. Early life. Born in 1350 or 1351, Ivan Shishman was the eldest son of Emperor Ivan Alexander and his second wife Sarah Theodora, a Jew converted to the Eastern Orthodox Church. His birth brought up the issue of the succession to the Bulgarian throne. Ivan Shishman had two elder brothers by the Ivan Alexander's first wife, Theodora of Wallachia. The eldest one, Michael Asen, was proclaimed successor to the throne and co-emperor shortly after Ivan Alexander's accession to the throne. However, Michael Asen's early death in battle against the Ottomans in 1355 put forward the question of succession once more. It is likely that Sarah Theodora pressured Ivan Alexander to select her own son as his successor, although Ivan Sratsamir would have come next under the majority system. The issue was decided in Ivan Shishman's favor because the latter was born in the purple, thus making him eligible as successor. By the end of 1355, Ivan Shishman had been proclaimed heir to the throne and co-emperor. These events led to a conflict with Ivan Sratsamir, who was in turn given the rule of Vidan, probably as a compensation. Another indirect piece of evidence for the feud is the fact that Ivan Sratsamir's portrait not included in the Tetra-Evangelia of Ivan Alexander, where the whole family of the emperor was otherwise presented. In 1356 Ivan Sratsamir proclaimed himself Emperor of Vidan, together with his father and younger brother Ivan Asen. Ivan Shishman presided over the church synods at Tarnovo in the late 1360s. Emperor of Bulgaria reigned before 1388. In his early 20s, Ivan Shishman was proclaimed emperor after the death of his father on the 17th of February. Ivan Shishman inherited only parts of his father's realm. He ruled the lands between the Iskra River and Silistra, the valley of Sofia, parts of the Rhodope Mountains and northern Thrace. To the west, the areas centered around Vidam recognized Ivan Sratsamir as Emperor of Bulgaria, while to the east, the Principality of Kavuna, encompassing the coastal strip between the Danube Delta and Cape Eminen under the rule of despot Dobratitsa, did not recognize the authority of the Emperor of Tarnovo either. Contemporary chroniclers such as Johann Schildberger speak of three regions, all of which were called Bulgaria. Thus, the country was divided on the eve of the Ottoman invasion, despite Ivan Shishman's claims in his royal charters. In these, he styled himself as a primary emperor in an attempt to emphasize the existence of a hierarchy among the rulers rulers of the three Bulgarias. However, that hierarchy remained only in paper. To further assert their independence from Tarnovo, both Ivan Shishman and Obratitsa separated the dioceses from the Bulgarian Patriarchate in Tarnovo. According to Fine, immediately after the death of Ivan Alexander, Ivan Shishman tried to conquer the whole of Bulgaria. He was able to capture Sofia and managed to hold the city for 1 or 2 years. The rivalry between the two brothers for Sofia had a strong tradition in the Bulgarian historiography since the time of Constantine Jurachek, but it has been dismissed by many modern Bulgarian historians. Only a few months after the ascension of Ivan Shishman to the throne, on the 26th of September 1371, the Ottoman Turks defeated a large Christian army led by the Serbian brothers Vukasin Mrnjavčević and Jovan Uglješa in the Battle of Chernomen. Although Uglješa had tried to create a broad coalition that would include Bulgaria, Ivan Shishman, who had to strengthen his own authority, did not join. After the victory at Chernomen, the Turks immediately turned on Bulgaria. Ottoman Sultan Murad I forced Ivan Shishman to retreat to the north of the Balkan Mountains and conquered northern Thrace, the Rhodopes, Kostanets, Itiman and Samokov. Unable to resist the attacks, Ivan Shishman had to negotiate with the Ottomans in 1373. He was forced to become an Ottoman vassal and to allow his sister Kara Tamara, who was known for her beauty, to become a wife of Murad I. Under this agreement, Bulgaria regained some of the conquered territories such as Itiman and Samokov, and began nearly 10 years of uneasy peace with the Turks. Despite the vassalage and the peace treaty, Ottoman raids were renewed in the beginning of the 1380s and culminated in 1385 with the fall of Sofia, the last stronghold of Ivan Shishman to the south of the Balkan Mountains. In the meantime, Ivan Shishman was engaged in a war against the voivode of Wallachia, Danai, between 1384 and 1386. There are few details about that war, only a brief note in the anonymous Bulgarian chronicle that Danai died the 23rd of September 1386 after being poisoned. The war was linked to the hostilities between Ivan Shishman and Ivan Shishman, who had the support of the Wallachian rulers and was married to Anna of the House of Basarab. Fall of Bulgaria. In 1387, the united forces of the Principality of Serbia and the Kingdom of Bosnia managed to defeat the Ottomans in the Battle of Plochny. Encouraged by the Christian success, Ivan Shishman immediately invalidated his vassalage to Murad I and refused to send troops in his support in 1388. The Ottomans reacted by sending a 30,000-strong army, under the command of the Grand Vizier Ali Pasha, to the north of the Balkan Mountains. The Ottoman troops seized the fortresses of Shumen, Mardara, Venchin and Ovech. Ivan Shishman left Tarnovo and headed to Nikopol, where he was besieged and forced to ask for peace. The Ottomans requested that he reconfirm his vassalage in addition to surrendering Silistra, at the time the most populous Bulgarian city along the Danube. However, Ivan Shishman, reassured by his neighbors that he would receive support in the preparations of Serbia for war, not only refused to let the Ottomans in the city, but also strengthened its walls. Ali Pasha crossed the Balkan Mountains for a second time to consecutively capture Shumen, Chervan, Svistov and once again besiege Ivan Shishman in Nikopol. Surprised by the swift Ottoman response and having not received the promised assistance, the Bulgarian emperor had to ask for peace. His pleas were accepted, but the terms were harsher than the original. Not only Silistra was to be surrendered, but Ottoman garrisons were to be stationed in other Bulgarian cities, most notably Shumen and Ovech. After the defeat of the Serbs and Bosniaks in the Battle of Kosovo on the 15th of June 1389, Ivan Shishman had to seek help from from Hungary. During the winter of 1391 to 1392, he entered into secret negotiations with the King of Hungary Sigismund, who was planning a campaign against the Turks. The new Ottoman Sultan Bayezid I pretended to have peaceful intentions in order to cut off Ivan Shishman from his alliance with the Hungarians. However, in the spring of 1393, Bayezid gathered a large army from his dominions in the Balkans and Asia Minor and attacked Bulgaria. The Ottomans marched to the capital Tarnovo and besieged it. The defense of the capital was led by Patriarch Evtimi because Ivan Shishman was located in Nikopol, presumably for better communication with Sigismund. After a 3-month siege, Tarnovo fell on the 17th of July. According to the contemporary Bulgarian scholar and cleric Gregory Sambalak, the city was not captured because of the Ottoman military strength but due to treason. The Ottoman campaign of 1393 devastated Bulgaria in the wake of that invasion. The lands of Ivan Shishman were limited to Nikopol and several towns along the Danube. Upon his return from Wallachia after the Battle of Rovine in 1395, Bayezid I attacked and captured Nikopol and, according to the anonymous Bulgarian chronicle, murdered Ivan Shishman on 3 June 1395. A Byzantine chronicle gives the date as 29 October. However, some sources suggest that the Bulgarian ruler was captured and died in prison. Culture and religion. The cultural revival that made the historians call the reign of Ivan Alexander a second golden age of Bulgarian culture continued under his son. The most prominent figure in that field during the last quarter of the 14th century was Patriarch Evtimi of Tarnovo, a disciple of Theodosius of Tarnovo. In 1371 he established the monastery of the Holy Trinity, a few kilometers to the north of Tarnovo, and turned it into an important cultural center and a major hub of the Tarnovo literary school. Evtimi wrote a number of religious works, including hagiographies, praises and letters, but is most famous for the orthographic reform and the standardization of the Bulgarian language, which had an impact in Serbia, Wallachia and the Russian principalities. Evtimi thought that many of the scholars were not sufficiently prepared, and that the translations of Greek texts in local dialects and peculiarities could lead to misinterpretation of the original and eventually to heretism. The texts regarding the reform did not survive, although its character has been partly recreated by the historians and linguists by analyzing the works of Evtimi himself and his disciples. The orthography was inspired by the original Old Church Slavonic during the heyday of the First Bulgarian Empire. The reform also included syntax changes and enrichment of the lexicon with a number of synonyms to avoid repetition. To ensure the success of the reform, all texts had to receive approval before publishing, a move that was supported by Ivan Shishman in his edicts. The capital Tarnovo was the main cultural center at the time. Patriarch Evtimi wrote about it. Hesychasm remained the main movement in the Bulgarian Orthodox Church during the reign of Ivan Shishman, and the Patriarch was its supporter. Bulgaria was a major center of hesychast ideas along with the Byzantine Empire. Evtimi was an active opponent to heresies, but it appears that since the mid-14th century the influence of the Bogomils, the most prominent heretic movement in the Balkans at the time, had been greatly reduced in Bulgaria, and no document mentions them after 1360. Other sects, such as the Baalamites, were also persecuted and repressed. Evtimi had strict views on moral and took firm positions against divorce and third or fourth marriages for widowers and widows. After the collapse of the Bulgarian Empire, many scholars emigrated to Serbia, Wallachia, Moldavia and the Russian principalities. They brought Bulgarian cultural achievements, books, and enthusiastic ideas to these lands. The Bulgarian influence was so great that it is often referred to as a second South Slavic influence on Russia. Some of the most prominent Bulgarian émigrés included Constantine of Kostanets, who worked in Serbia, and Cyprian and Gregory Samblak in the Russian lands. The economy was in decline since the loss of the major ports of Mesembria and Anchialus to the Savoyard Crusade a few years before Ivan Shishman was crowned. After the death of Ivan Alexander and the breakaway of Dobrotitz's Principality of Kavuna, Tarnovo also lost its most important port, Varna, leading to a reduction in commerce and tax revenues. The persistent Ottoman raids brought devastation, hunger and depopulation, which led to a sharp decline in the cultivated lands. Assessment and legacy. Bulgarian historians have had mostly negative assessments of Ivan Shishman. He is often viewed as having intruded onto the throne due to the intrigues of his mother and thus taking the place of the rightful successor, his elder brother Ivan Sratsamir. This eventually resulted in the division of the country on the eve of the Ottoman invasion. There are no direct historical sources to suggest any significant attempts by Ivan Shishman to fight off the Turks. The inconsistent policy of Ivan Shishman has been described as revealing his weakness and inability to cope with the situation. His rule, however, was still remembered in the 16th century. In a treaty signed in 1519 between the Ottoman Sultan Selim I and Louis II of Hungary, some of the lands in question were referred to as Terra Caesara Sismin, the land of Emperor Shishman. The memory of Ivan Shishman remained during the first centuries of the Ottoman rule. During the First Tarnovo uprising in 1598, one of the rebels' leaders, whose name is unknown, claimed to have been a descendant of Ivan Shishman and was proclaimed emperor under the name Shishman III. Almost a century later, in 1686, a second uprising in Tarnovo was headed by Rostislav Stratomirovich, who also claimed to have belonged to the Shishman dynasty and styled himself as Prince of Bulgaria. Ivan Shishman is now among the most popular and well-known rulers in the Third Bulgarian state. There are a number of works dedicated to him and his rule, including the 1969 film Tsar Ivan Shishman by Yuri Onordov and the song Tsar Ivan Shishman by the heavy metal band Episode in the 2004 album St. Patriarch Evtimi. Shishman Peak on Livingston Island in the South Shetland Islands, Antarctica, is also named after him. Legends. Ivan Shishman is the most prominent medieval ruler in Bulgarian folklore. His name is heard in a number of legends, myths, tales and songs. He is represented as a heroic ruler who fought and died for his country, facing overwhelming enemy forces. There are a number of places throughout Bulgaria named after him, ranging from castles and ruins to rocks, caves and localities. That legendary geography is mainly concentrated in the region of Sofia, Itiman and Samakov, though it extends to the Rhodope Mountains, Sredna Gora, Vratsa, Pleven, Prilep, Varna, etc. Near Samakov are the ruins of Shishman's fortress, with the emperor's wells, which reputedly spouted from the ruler's 7 wounds. Further north, along the cliffs and heights of the Iska Gorge, are Shishman's holes, the caves where he hid while fighting the Ottomans for 7 years. Other related toponyms usually associated with the emperor's last stand are Kokolyani, Cherepish and Lyotibrod, all thought to be hinting at the fate of the perished Bulgarian troops. One of the most famous legends is about Shishman's final battle. The Ottomans camped at Kostanets, near the origins of the Maritsa River, while the Bulgarians were near Samokov on a hill. After a fierce battle, Ivan Shishman was wounded 7 times and retreated to the fortress, where he died. On the battlefield 7 springs appeared, one for each of the emperor's wounds. He is also said to have fought in the Balkan mountains at Shishkingrad, between Sliven and Kazanlak, where he killed 10,000 Janissaries in a huge battle. The 18th century Bulgarian enlightener Pysius of Hilander wrote in his Historia Slavyana Bulgarska that during the siege of Tarnovo Ivan Shishman managed to reach Sofia with his boyars. He hid his treasury in the Iska Gorge and fought against the Turks for 7 years before dying in battle. Some versions suggest that Kokolyanskiyevich remained the last fortress to fall, and before Shishman died he buried treasure under the castle and tried to escape by cutting a passage through the mountain. The repeating motif of the treasure is a sacral symbol of the Bulgarian statehood, and the usual locations of the imperial jewelry are monasteries, lakes or hideouts under rivers, being undiscovered by the invaders. The treasure symbolizes the sovereignty and power of the Bulgarian Empire and its inevitable resurrection. There are also a number of parallels between the legends about Ivan Shishman and the hagiography of saints, especially John of Rila, including the almost identical route of the emperor Tarnovo Sofia Samokov in Rila, and the route of the return of the relics of St. John of Rila to the Rila monastery in 15th century Tarnovo Sofia Rila, and also the motif of the immortal rulers who foresees the restoration of the country. Extract of a folklore song collected by the Miladinov brothers. Ivan Shishman is one of the few rulers to be mentioned in the Bulgarian folklore songs and, as in the legends, is a subject of mystification. His figure can even be seen in Christmas carols, where he is presented either as a saint in the role of protector or as a hero fighting dragons and oppressors, usually presented as Tartars because of the resemblance with the Tartarus. The songs about Ivan Shishman contain many parallels with nature and collocations which are typical of Bulgarian folklore. In a song from the region of Sliven, the death of the emperor brings chaos to nature and rivers of black blood start flowing. The place of Ivan Shishman in the Bulgarian legends and folklore is most likely attributed to the fact that he was the last Bulgarian emperor in Tarnovo. There are many similarities with his contemporary King Marko, the ruler of Prilep, who did little to resist the Ottoman invasion but later became the most popular character in the Bulgarian folklore. The people desired to bear the image of the ideal emperor, a defender and protector, whose strength they needed to survive under Ottoman domination, and not the actual historical personality. As time passed, the mystification deepened and the legends became more distant from the actual events during his rule. During the Bulgarian national revival, the tales about Ivan Shishman began to increasingly include patriotic elements. Family. Ivan Shishman was married first to a Bulgarian named Kira Maria, who died in the early 1380s. His second wife was Dragana Lazarevich, a daughter of Prince Lazar of Serbia and Milika Nemanjić and kin to the previous Serbian dynasty. His eldest son Alexander converted to Islam under the name Iskandar, and died as governor of Smyrna in 1418, while his second son Frushin participated in revolts and campaigns against the Ottomans, trying to liberate his father's realm, and died in Hungary after 1444. It has been speculated by historians, such as Plamen Pavlov, that Patriarch Joseph II of Constantinople was an illegitimate son of Ivan Shishman. The claim is based on a Byzantine text which says they said that he was an illegitimate son of the Emperor Shishman. Timeline 1350 or 1351. Ivan Shishman was born By 1355, proclaimed heir to the throne and co-emperor. The 17th of February 1371, succeeds his father as Emperor of Bulgaria in Tarnovo. 1373, becomes Ottoman vassal in return for some previously conquered lands. 1378, issues the Real Charter. 1385, Fall of Sofia. 1384–1386, War against Wallachia. 1388, the Ottomans invade eastern Bulgaria and conquer a number of towns. The 17th of July 1393, Fall of Tarnovo. The 3rd of June 1395, the Ottomans capture Nikopol and Ivan Shishman is executed.